This is the anticipated rhythm pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4. You may be able to tell already, but this pattern is used in some of the most well-known pop songs, including Beat It by Michael Jackson, Blank Space by Taylor Swift,
Nice to meet you, where you been? I could show you incredible things.
and my personal favorite, Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson. Hi, my name's Tim, and in today's video, I'm going to teach you all about these rhythm patterns, how to count them, and then towards the end, I'm going to give you 3 tips to count any rhythm pattern perfectly every time. Pattern 1, anticipation. This is called an anticipation because it anticipates an upcoming beat and shifts things over from where you might expect. So taking a look at this bass line, you would expect this E to happen on beat 1. And see, by putting it on beat 1, it actually makes the rhythm sound a lot more even with the 8th notes. But instead what you have is you come on the second half of beat 4, and I counted that in the intro. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. See, it just added a bit more character to that bass line, and that's the whole point of an anticipation. You may be wondering, how do you come in on the second half of a beat? Well, it's quite easy. So here we have a measure of 4 with each of the quarter notes hitting on one of the 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we have 8 eighth notes, so we're going to have to split these in half, and we just use the term and, which looks like a plus sign. And now it's counted 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, with the eighth notes being twice as fast as those quarter notes we just played. Pattern 2, 4 on the floor. Have you ever been listening to a song and you hear that thumping bass on each beat?
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas.
This is called 4 on the floor. It's where the bass drum hits on each beat, creating a thumping sound and a driving force moving the music forward. That's why it's perfect for dance music. And now that I said that, you're going to hear 4 on the floor all the time because it's very, very popular. Hey, check it out. So I was just talking about 4 on the floor, right? And I was telling you about how now that I've talked about it, you're going to hear it in your music all the time. Well, I was just listening to video game soundtracks, as I always do while I'm working, and this is by a channel called Player 2, Super Mario Bros. 3, Hammer Brothers Battle, Player 2 Remix. Now, I want you to listen to it to see if you hear what I hear. So here's a question you may have. So what if you don't play the drums and you play an instrument like me and I play the piano? How are you going to incorporate 4 on the floor into your playing? So here I found a super easy version of Poker Face, the song we just played basically. And I just want to make a point with this. It's very easy. So see how we have the chord symbols up top, A minor, then F and G on that top line. Second line, A minor, F, G. So it's repeated. And so normally you would play the chord, right? But that's pretty boring. We're going to add 4 on the floor to this. So what you can do is you can hit a bass note of that chord on each of the 4 beats in that measure. And to make it even better, you can double them as octaves to really give like a punching force into that left hand or that bass area. Pattern 3, backbeat. Similar to 4 on the floor, you have a note on each of the 4 beats giving a driving along feeling, but this time on beats 2 and 4, you have a snare drum hitting instead of just 4 bass notes. This can be observed in the song Superstitious by Stevie Wonder, where you have this backbeat coming in even before the guitar starts. Pattern 4, syncopation. Syncopation is when you shift accented beats over to disrupt the regular flow of rhythm. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. So notes don't occur exactly where you think. And you may have heard me say that in the beginning with the anticipation. And guess what? Anticipation is a type of syncopation. There's actually an easy way to tell if you have syncopation, and here's how you do it. So when you see a tie happening, especially when it happens on one of the primary beats, so we have beat 1, 2, here's beat 3, and here is beat 4. You see how there's a tie over where beat 3 hits? Well, that is shifting over the beat from where you might expect. So really beat 3 starts a 16th note early. So it's going to give this type of sound. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and. Whereas without the syncopation, it would sound more like this. Without the syncopation, it sounds a lot more even and a lot more predictable and a lot less interesting. You also know you have syncopation if you have something like this, where the rhythm pattern starts with an eighth note followed by a quarter note. Normally, you would expect beat 2 to happen here, but it doesn't. This is actually still the second half of beat 2. And then you have and 3, which shifts that over, and 4, and. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. See how just that shifting over the beat made just that simple line a bit more interesting. Let's take a look at another piece and see if we can identify where the syncopation occurs based on what I just told you. This is Pyramid Song by Radiohead. So I have a question for you. Where does the syncopation occur in the beginning of this piece? It should be immediately obvious. So I see a syncopation right away, right here. Now, how do I know that? Well, remember I said ties, but not just ties. Ties that tie over notes that happen on one of the primary beats, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Now let's chart out the beats in this measure and see what's going on. So we have this primary beat that's tied over. Normally you would expect this to hit on beat 3. However, that's not the case. Because it's tied over, it actually happens on the second half of beat 2, which shifts it over from where you might expect. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Whereas without the syncopation, it would just be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. See how much more boring that sounds? Pattern 5, Reggaeton beat. Reggaeton is a type of dance music from Puerto Rico. It is a fusion of Latin styles and hip-hop that creates an interesting beat. Have you ever been listening to a piece of music and you hear this? Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, bum. Well, chances are that's a reggaeton beat. And you've probably heard these in modern pop songs like Despacito. This is a basic rundown of how to count reggaeton beat. You have bass notes on all 4 beats, which is interesting because you might expect a syncopated rhythm by the way it sounds, but the bass is hitting straight quarter notes the whole way. In the drums, there is a snare or hi-hat on the of beat 1 and the and of 2. This is what creates that offbeat type of sound that you would expect from a syncopated rhythm. And it's also common to have another drum beat on the and of every beat. So it's going to sound like this. Bum, ba-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-dum, bum. I mentioned in the beginning that we're going to finish out with some counting tips which can make counting any rhythm way easier. Tip number 1, start counting even before you play to make sure that you're coming in on the correct beat and setting a steady tempo. Tip number 2 is you should be counting in your head at least while you play. Now, if you haven't been doing this for a while, it may be impossible to do with the songs that you're currently working on. So the key is to find a song that's easier than what you're currently working on. So tackling the rhythm will be much easier since that's a skill in and of itself that you'll have to concentrate on. Tip number 3 is to use attack points to your advantage. So what are attack points? Well, let me show you. So say you have this rhythm here, and this can trip up a lot of students because they think about it the wrong way. The question they ask themselves is, how long do I hold these notes for, right? Because they're tied together. But the better question to ask yourself is, where do I move to the next note? And the answer is this. So if we have this dotted quarter note here, this is counted 1 and 2. By the way, if you don't know how to count these, I'm going to link you to a lesson at the end here, which will help you out. But we have and 3 here. So this has 1 and 2 and 3. We're tying these over. So the answer that we are looking for is right here. And then this is 4 and, the last beat. So when I'm playing this rhythm, I'm really focusing on when to move to the next note, right? So we have some notes that are held over here, and we're really planning our point of attack, which is the second half of beat 3. So when I play this first note, I'm going to count 1 and 2 and 3 and I'm really focusing in on when we're moving on to the next beat, because the rest of the measure is actually pretty easy. That's just 4 and. So here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, there's a final tip to rule them all, and trust me, it is the best tip of the whole lesson. But first, I just want to say thank you to all those that have supported the channel throughout the years, from the regular viewers to the mods to people that sign up for courses on my website, pianolessonsontheweb.com, and the channel members. I want to thank you guys so much, because without your support, we wouldn't have been able to reach as many students as we've had.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Tip 4. You need to become familiar with common rhythm patterns such as 4 on the floor, syncopation, and anticipation, the main ones we talked about today, but you also want to become familiar with more ubiquitous patterns such as dotted quarter eighth rhythms, 16th note combo rhythms, and 3 versus 2 polyrhythms. If you want to learn how to count these, you need to check out this video right here. It's going to teach you all about it. It's been your piano teacher, Tim, here, and happy practicing.